Welcome to Life Stories, where we share powerful journeys of resilience, growth, and transformation. Today, we dive into the story of Emily Harper, a seasoned professional who spent 25 years building relationships at Hamilton and Associates, only to be unceremoniously discarded in a corporate restructure. As she faces betrayal and uncertainty, Emily discovers her true worth and takes control of her future. Join us as we follow her journey of reinvention, client loyalty, and the pursuit of justice. Subscribe to our channel to begin this inspiring story with us today. The words hung in the air, heavy and suffocating, as if the very walls of the sleek conference room had turned against me. We've decided to restructure the client relations department. Emily, today will be your last day. Ryan Davis, the new managing partner who had joined Hamilton and Associates just 8 months ago, looked at me with a mixture of practiced regret and cold professionalism. His gaze was empty, his tone devoid of the warmth I had once expected from a leader who should have understood the value of loyalty and experience. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. This was supposed to be my career, my life's work. 25 years I had spent building Hamilton and Associates from a modest consulting firm into one of Boston's most respected names in the legal industry. I had been there through the thick and thin, through the hard times when clients didn't know if we would make it and the good times when we had become an industry leader. I had given them my heart and soul, my late nights, my weekends, my unwavering commitment, and now, I was being discarded like an outdated policy manual. Ryan's eyes barely flickered as he slid a manila folder across the polished conference table. HR has prepared a severance package, 2 months' salary and continuation of benefits through the end of the quarter, he said, as though it was all a formality, as if those words could erase the devastation I felt. The folder seemed to mock me, its contents a cold, calculated reminder of what I had just lost. Janice from our, sitting beside Ryan, nodded sympathetically. She didn't even look at me directly. Her eyes darted to the table, her voice flat as she added, "The necessary downsizing affects several departments." She wasn't even offering me a semblance of empathy, just business. And that's when I realized, business decisions were no longer personal at Hamilton and Associates. To them, I was a statistic, a cost they had decided was too high. I had always prided myself on my relationships with clients. I had cultivated them over decades, knowing their families, understanding their concerns, and meeting their needs before they even had a chance to express them. I made them feel valued, not just as clients but as partners in success. I had always believed that those relationships, the trust I had built, would protect me, but as I sat there, staring at Ryan's impassive face, I knew it wasn't about trust anymore. It was about efficiency, about maximizing the bottom line at the cost of everything I had worked for. "Does Arthur know about this?" I asked, my voice steady despite the earthquake happening inside me. Arthur Hamilton, the founder and the man who had hired me 25 years ago, had always been a champion of relationships. He had taught me that business wasn't just about numbers, it was about people. Relationships were the core of everything we did. Ryan's jaw tightened, and for the first time, I saw a crack in his polished demeanor. "All partners were consulted on the restructuring decisions," he replied, his tone clipped and rehearsed. His words didn't answer my question, and I could feel the frustration bubbling inside me. Arthur had been in London for weeks, negotiating the firm's European expansion. How could he not know? Was this all just a move in a game I hadn't even been told was being played? The security guard who had been hovering awkwardly by the door stepped forward. "I'll escort you to your desk to gather your things," he said, as though the words didn't carry a heavy weight of humiliation. I had written that protocol myself 12 years ago. I had been the one to put in place the procedures that treated departing employees with dignity. Now, I was the one being escorted out, a walking symbol of everything that had gone wrong at Hamilton and Associates. I stood up, my legs feeling as though they were made of stone. I gathered my personal belongings, photos from charity galas, thank you notes from clients, and the crystal paperweight Arthur had given me on my 20th work anniversary. The little things that had mattered so much over the years now seemed so insignificant in the face of what had just happened. As I walked to my desk, my phone buzzed with a text from Catherine Mitchell, the CEO of Winters Healthcare, our largest client. Ruth, I've heard troubling rumors about changes at Hamilton. Our quarterly review is next week. Call me ASAP. I stopped for a moment, staring at the screen. Catherine had been one of my first clients when I started at the firm. She trusted me, and now, I was being fired like an afterthought while the firm scrambled to manage the fallout. I looked up and saw Ryan watching me from his office, already on the phone, undoubtedly spinning a story of damage control to the clients. But what he didn't understand, and what none of them seemed to grasp, was that client relationships were not something that could be transferred with a memo or reassigned in a database. They were built over time, with patience, with care, with trust, and I had just been severed from 25 years of those connections. They weren't just business to me. They were personal. I walked out of the building, my heart heavy, my mind racing. I had devoted my career to Hamilton and Associates. And now, it seemed like nothing but a distant memory. But what I didn't know, what I couldn't yet see, was that this moment of devastation would become the catalyst for something far more powerful. I had been discarded by Hamilton, but the relationships I had built were not so easily erased. They would come to my aid when I needed them most, and they would lead me to an opportunity I never expected. As the door swung shut behind me, I realized that the world had changed. It had been a game, and I had been playing by the wrong rules. But I was done. The game had ended, and now, I would write my own rules. The next few days were a blur. I spent my time scouring job search websites, sending out resumes, and reading the countless messages from colleagues and friends who had heard the news. It was a strange feeling, being both flooded with attention and yet so utterly alone. My LinkedIn profile exploded with views. Nothing like a sudden termination to make you momentarily interesting to headhunters. But I couldn't focus on that. I had lost more than just a job. I had lost my identity. The very essence of who I had been for the past 25 years. And then, as if on cue, my phone buzzed again. This time it was a text from Catherine Winters, the CEO of Winters Healthcare, our firm's largest client. I hadn't reached out to any of them. I was too professional to badmouth my former employer, no matter how badly they had treated me. But Catherine wasn't the type to let things slide. Ruth, I've heard troubling rumors about changes at Hamilton. Our quarterly review is next week. Call me ASAP. I stared at the screen. Catherine's words were more than just a casual inquiry. She had been one of my most loyal clients. One of the first to trust me when I took over the accounts. She had been with me through the highs and lows of the firm. And now, I was being discarded. I could already guess what Ryan Davis, the new managing partner, was doing, spinning a carefully crafted narrative of restructuring to calm the clients. But I knew the truth. It wasn't just restructuring, it was a calculated move to cut costs. To remove anyone with too much tenure, too much experience, and too much power in relationships. They didn't care about what I had built, about the personal connections I had fostered. They saw me as just another cost. But what Ryan and the others didn't understand was that relationships couldn't be measured in dollars and cents. They weren't something you could reassign to a younger employee with a PowerPoint presentation. Relationships took time, they took trust, and most importantly, they took personal care. I had spent years getting to know my clients on a deep, personal level. I remembered their children's names, their anniversaries, their fears and dreams for the future. I knew when to step back and when to push, when to challenge and when to support. That wasn't something you could easily replace. I took a deep breath and called Catherine back. Ruth, you're a hard one to get hold of these days, she said, her voice filled with warmth but also concern. I heard about what happened. Are you okay? It was hard not to choke on my words. I'm fine. It's a lot to process. I've been in this business long enough to know when something's not right. Catherine continued, I've worked with Hamilton for 12 years. And you were always the one who kept everything running smoothly. Now I'm hearing that a junior partner is taking over my account? Her voice was sharp, and I could hear the frustration in it. Melissa Bennett, I said with a dry laugh. She's the one assigned to your account now. Melissa Bennett? You've got to be kidding me. She tried to explain my business model to me last year. Ruth, she has no idea what she's doing with me or with my company. I need someone I can trust. Not someone who thinks they can just throw around jargon and call it a relationship. I could feel a sense of vindication wash over me. But it didn't bring me any joy. It only solidified the deep sense of loss I was experiencing. I had worked so hard to ensure my clients felt valued. To build those long-term relationships that allowed me to anticipate their needs. And now, I was no longer there to defend them. Listen, Ruth, Catherine said, her voice softening. I've been loyal to Hamilton. But I don't know if I can trust them anymore. We have our quarterly review next week. I don't know if I want to sit down with someone who doesn't even understand my business. I understand, I said quietly. If you need anything, let me know. The call ended, but my mind didn't stop racing. I thought of all the other clients I had nurtured over the years, clients like Catherine. Who trusted me? Who relied on my expertise? How many of them were feeling the same way? How many of them were wondering what had happened to the firm they had once relied on? And more importantly, how many of them would follow me? I didn't reach out to any of them directly. It wasn't in my nature to poach clients. No matter how badly I had been treated. But clients talk to each other. They belong to the same industry groups. They attend the same conferences. They sit on the same boards. Word would spread. It already was. And that's when I realized that I had something the firm couldn't take away from me. I had built a network of relationships that was worth far more than anything Hamilton could offer. This wasn't just a professional setback, it was an opportunity. As I sat there in my apartment, surrounded by the echoes of what had been my career, I knew that the world was shifting around me. I wasn't going to be passive anymore. I wasn't going to just sit back and let them tell me my worth. I had worked hard for everything I had. And now, it was time for me to take control. I hadn't yet decided what I was going to do next. But one thing was certain, I wasn't done. Not by a long shot. The days following my termination were filled with a strange mix of anger, sadness, and determination. I spent hours on the phone with former colleagues, all of whom were shocked by my sudden departure. Many expressed their regret, but there was nothing they could do. The decisions had already been made. And I was out. But there was a constant stream of messages from clients. Some simply offering sympathy, others making it clear they were deeply concerned about the future of their business relationships with Hamilton. And then, the offers started coming in. It began with a text from Catherine Winters, the CEO of Winters Healthcare. She was the first to reach out. As always, and I could hear the concern in her voice. Ruth, are you okay? This restructuring. What does this mean for us? I had been her primary point of contact at Hamilton for years. And the thought of replacing me had never crossed her mind. But now, as my termination made the rounds, she was looking for assurances that she wouldn't be abandoned. I knew then that my value wasn't tied to Hamilton, but to the clients I had cultivated over decades. I had built those relationships, understood their needs, anticipated their concerns, and ensured they felt like they mattered. That was something Hamilton couldn't replace with a database or a junior partner. That was something they didn't value when they decided to let me go. The phone rang again. It was Sarah Mitchell, the CEO of Archer Pharmaceuticals. She was another client who had worked with me for years. Emily, we need to talk, she said, her voice firm but kind. I heard the news, and I want to make sure we're still aligned. We don't want to make a move without knowing what's going on with the firm. Sarah, I don't know what's going on with Hamilton, I replied, my voice steady, but I can assure you, the relationships we've built over the years aren't going anywhere. That was when I realized I didn't need to actively seek new opportunities. The opportunities were already coming to me. Word had spread quickly through the industry about my departure. And now my phone was buzzing nonstop with messages, calls, and inquiries from firms wanting to know what I planned to do next. I hadn't been looking for a change. I had never considered leaving Hamilton, especially not after all the years I had dedicated to it. But this was different. My termination was a catalyst for something greater. Something I had never truly imagined. I was suddenly in demand. Not just because of my experience, but because of my network. My relationships. What I had built over the years that no one could take away from me. I took meetings with several firms, including Franklin Consulting, a mid-sized firm that was looking to expand its client relations division. Their offer was tempting. They wanted to bring me on board as a partner, offering a substantial salary, equity, and the freedom to build my own department. It was a dream come true. I could finally have the recognition I deserved, and I could do it on my own terms. I also met with a few smaller firms, each offering its own version of freedom, flexibility, and opportunity. But as I listened to their pitches, I couldn't help but wonder if I was simply jumping from one corporate structure to another. Was this really what I wanted? More power? More responsibility? Or was I just looking for validation in the wake of a harsh rejection? It didn't take long for me to realize that what mattered most wasn't the firm's prestige or the salary on the table. What mattered was the kind of work environment I wanted to be a part of. I didn't want to repeat the mistakes Hamilton had made, prioritizing short-term gains over long-term relationships. Efficiency over human connection. I made a decision. I was going to join Franklin Consulting. But this time, it wasn't about the firm. It was about what I could build there. This was my opportunity to finally take control of my career, my relationships, and my future. The offers were tempting, but I knew that joining Franklin Consulting wasn't just a job change. It was a chance to redefine my legacy. I would no longer be bound by corporate politics, by efficiency metrics, or by the whims of leadership that didn't understand the true value of relationships. It was time to take my own path. I was ready to build something meaningful, something that would last longer than any firm's quarterly profits. I would become the architect of my own success, and I would do it with the same principles that had guided me for 25 years. Putting people first, building trust, and never losing sight of what truly mattered. The phone rang again. It was Catherine Winters. "Emily, I've been thinking," she said, her voice hesitant but hopeful. "You've always been the one we could count on. If you go, we'll follow you. We want you on our side. We're not ready to let you go." I smiled, feeling a sense of warmth wash over me. "I'll let you know soon," I said, my voice filled with certainty. I wasn't sure of the exact path I was taking, but for the first time in a long while, I knew I was heading in the right direction. The day I made my decision to join Franklin Consulting, the atmosphere in the office was a mix of excitement and disbelief. I had gone from a terminated employee to someone with the power to reshape my future. And more than that, reshape the future of the industry I had spent decades building. Franklin Consulting had offered me an opportunity that was too perfect to turn down. They wanted me to help them integrate Hamilton and Associates' client relationships and client portfolios. It was a significant move, not just for me but for them as well, as they knew that my history with Hamilton could bring their firm the kind of stability they needed in a rapidly changing market. I had made it clear to Franklin Consulting that I wasn't just bringing in my clients and my expertise. I was bringing the years of trust, loyalty, and relationships that Hamilton had failed to see as valuable. These relationships were built on a foundation of genuine care, and I was determined to make sure that the clients who trusted me for so long would not fall victim to the corporate tactics of firms like Hamilton. They deserved better, and I was going to give it to them. But before moving forward, I knew I had to confront my past. And that meant facing Arthur Hamilton again. I hadn't seen him since my departure. It had been a difficult time, one filled with humiliation, resentment, and the nagging feeling that something had been taken from me that could never be replaced. But now, as I prepared for my meeting with him, I felt a sense of calm. The storm that had once swirled inside me had finally quieted. This was no longer about revenge, this was about closure. Arthur, ever the professional, had arranged for us to meet at the Harvest, a quiet, upscale restaurant in the city. I arrived exactly on time. And there he was, seated at a table near the back. His face aged by the pressure of the past weeks. As I approached, I saw a flicker of relief in his eyes. He was clearly struggling with the fallout of my departure. But there was something else, too, a sense of fear. "Emily," he said, his voice strained but genuine. "I'm glad you agreed to meet. I've been trying to fix this situation. But Ryan, he's been blocking me at every turn. He's convinced the board that your termination was necessary to modernize the firm. And now, well, the clients are speaking up." I nodded, my expression unreadable. "I'm aware of the situation, Arthur. I've spoken to many of them. They're not happy, and they're not staying silent. I need to fix this. Emily," Arthur continued, "I want to offer you a chance to return. We could call it a misunderstanding. A miscommunication. You've built this firm's client base. And I'd like you to come back as Chief Client Officer. More responsibility, better compensation." It was tempting. It was everything I had wanted a week ago. But there was something in the way Arthur spoke that made me hesitate. He was still trying to control the narrative. Still trying to salvage the reputation of Hamilton. Not for the sake of the clients, but for the sake of the firm. His desperation was palpable, and it became clear that his motives weren't entirely about me. He was trying to save himself. "I appreciate the offer, Arthur," I said, carefully choosing my words. "But I can't come back to Hamilton. Not under these circumstances." Arthur's face fell. "What are you going to do? Emily? You can't leave now. We need you." "I've already made my decision," I replied. "I'm joining Franklin Consulting. They understand the value of relationships. And they understand that clients are not just a line on a spreadsheet. They're the heart of the business." Arthur looked at me, his frustration evident. "You're making a mistake," he said, his voice low. "You can't leave Hamilton like this. You've been with us for so long." I leaned back in my chair, feeling a sense of empowerment that I had never felt before. "No, Arthur. The mistake was made long before I left. You let the firm lose its way. You let it forget what made us different. And now you're trying to hold on to something that's already gone." The conversation ended with a silence that spoke volumes. I knew I wasn't going to change Arthur's mind. But I had said what I needed to say. Hamilton and Associates was no longer the place I had joined 25 years ago. It had become a place that valued profit over people, numbers over relationships. And that was a place I couldn't stay. As I walked out of the restaurant, I felt lighter than I had in weeks. The weight of the past was finally behind me. I had made my choice. And I was moving forward. The next morning, I walked into Franklin Consulting's office, ready to take on the challenge ahead. The clients I had worked with for so long were already starting to reach out. And I knew I was making the right decision. The firm's leadership was supportive. And the work environment was a breath of fresh air. There were no power struggles. No backroom deals. Just a team of professionals who valued each other and the relationships we built. And just like that, I was in control again. The road ahead wasn't going to be easy. But it was mine to walk. The journey I had started 25 years ago had taken me to this moment. And I wasn't about to let anything stand in my way. I was back in the game. And this time, I was playing by my own rules. The months that followed my decision to join Franklin Consulting were transformative. I had gone from being discarded by Hamilton and Associates to leading a department at Franklin, overseeing the integration of client portfolios and relationships that I had cultivated over decades. The transition wasn't without challenges. But the support I received from Franklin's leadership and the respect I earned from my colleagues made it clear that I had made the right choice. The clients, who had reached out during my departure, were quick to follow me. Not because of a business deal, but because they knew I would always put their interests first. I realized then that success wasn't just about climbing the corporate ladder, it was about building something lasting. Something real. It was about integrity, about relationships, and about the people who supported you along the way. When I walked into the office each day, it wasn't just to make deals, it was to create something meaningful. To remind my clients that their trust was not something I took lightly. Arthur Hamilton's firm, on the other hand, continued to struggle. Leadership changes, client exodus, and instability became the new norm. It became clear that the firm had lost its way when it sacrificed its core values in the pursuit of short-term gains. Meanwhile, I had built something far more valuable than any financial portfolio. I had rebuilt my life, my career, and my sense of purpose. Sometimes, life teaches you the hardest lessons through the most painful experiences. But it's how you rise from those moments that defines you. And as I sat in my new office, surrounded by a team that valued relationships, I knew one thing for certain: no one could ever take away what I had built. Thank you for following this story. If you've enjoyed this journey, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Life Stories for more inspiring tales.